Welcome back. With us live over the phone now is His Excellency Ambassador Medhat Meligy, former Assistant Foreign Minister. Good afternoon, Ambassador Meligy.
Good afternoon to you.
It's a real pleasure to have you on Arab Affairs. Let me just get into the point. The occupation forces again violated the peace agreement that was effected in Sharm el-Sheikh, the top summit that was held earlier in Sharm el-Sheikh. And they opened fire from a drone on eastern areas of Jabalia and Shujaiya in the Gaza Strip. And also UNRWA said that this is the atmospheric low pressure is also destroying the poor Palestinians who are living in tents right now, and this is going to have repercussions, catastrophic repercussions, in addition to the violations of the Israelis. How do you assess the situation, the current situation in Gaza, in spite of the peace agreement?
Well, actually, the real problem is that nobody wants to admit that the peace process or the Sharm el-Sheikh agreement were actually born prematurely. I mean, this agreement was not the best agreement we could reach, and Israel only accepted it because it was the only equation that would permit its detainees to get back to their homeland. However, the problem is that Israel did not recognize this as the beginning of a real peace with them. Let's not forget that politically speaking, Israel did not achieve any of its goals that it has vowed to achieve from day one of this war on the 8th of October. They could not release their hostages by force. They could not destroy the resistance movements, including Hamas. And there are so many obstacles to the real implementation of this. That's why we are seeing now President Trump is trying to draft a new resolution, this time through the United Nations, because this agreement, the one that was signed in Sharm el-Sheikh, I believe it is dead. And the only reason that it's still alive is that no one wants to admit that Israel has been violating this from day one. What kind of ceasefire that allow over 400 persons to be killed until now from the day of signature?
Exactly.
So, I mean, we cannot say that this is a real ceasefire. But Israel had an interest to implement the first phase of the agreement, which would allow its prisoners and the bodies of those who died to go back to Israel. And also Hamas, let's be fair, also Hamas is not really into moving to phase 2, because this would mean the disarmament of Hamas, something that Hamas and other armed formations do not want to admit. So this is the real problem we are having right now, and I believe that the situation is going to be blurry for some time. We have several initiatives. We don't know which one will take off. I mean, the one of Mr. Trump or the one of the French president with Mr. Mahmoud Abbas aiming at looking at the future of a Palestinian state. Although Israel has a veto on that, and it said that it would never accept the establishment of a Palestinian state. So the situation that we have so many initiatives and we don't know which one will really be accepted by the parties. Let's just add one last thing that, and I think this is one of the major problems and the major obstacle to any agreement to really take off from the side of the Americans and the Israelis, which is always the absence of the Palestinian negotiators during these negotiations. I mean, we always hear about the special envoys coming from the United States to discuss with their Israeli counterparts about the so-called new resolution or agreements or proposed initiatives. But we don't hear about them negotiating this with the Palestinian side, not to mention Hamas. So, I mean, how do you want this to be accepted if the party that is going to be
is not existing
supposedly implementing it is not aware about it.
Right, but then Ambassador Meligy, you kindly pointed to two important parts. The first of them is that Hamas this time did not attempt at all to violate the rules that were stated and conditions by the United States on the first hand itself, not only Egypt. They did not violate the rights, they bared the consequences, and again Israel is violating the peace agreements and the conditions and the terms that were set and agreed on between President Donald Trump and President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi and the attendance of the peace summit. They are violating it and eradicating or expanding their provocations in such a defensive, defying way that is very provocative. However, Hamas is staying, stands still and does not react. Why is the international community and the United States not interfering?
I think the international community is just like us, a little bit blurred by the whole picture. Nobody knows what's really going on. Israel is continuing its assault on the West Bank. We have to be honest about this point. Always the violations of Hamas were minor compared to the Israeli violations all along since even 1948 and even before that. Israel has always violated each and every agreement or treaty that it has signed, including the one signed with Egypt and with Jordan. So the idea of Israel violating...
And with Lebanon also.
Of course.
And with Lebanon now.
As we say, there is nothing new under the sun. Israel is still violating, as it has always have done it. Sometimes Hamas is trying just to postpone things or try to gain some time or anything of the sort. But at the end of the day, the violation of Hamas are not to be compared with those of Israel. Having said that, the most important thing is that the international community doesn't know exactly what are we looking for. Phase 1 is supposedly ending and we are supposed to start phase 2. And as I said earlier, none of the parties want seriously to start phase 2, although we are looking into implementation of phase 2, because this would mean the total end of Israeli violation and the withdrawal of Israeli troops, which Israel doesn't want to do. It's benefiting from the current situation. If you remember before this agreement, the one before, when Israel did not want to implement phase 2, and it's always the same problem. Phase 1 is always in the interest of Israel, and that's why it's implemented with the minimum of obstacles. But when it comes to phase 2...
I would just get in, Ambassador Meligy, I'm going to excuse you for Al-Asr prayers call right now, and we'll come back to you. Stay with us, please. We will be coming after Al-Asr prayers call for us.
Okay.
Welcome back. That was the call for Al-Asr prayers, and we're still on with Arab Affairs, and with us live over the phone is His Excellency Ambassador Medhat al-Meligy, former Assistant Foreign Minister. Welcome back, Ambassador Meligy. Hello? Ambassador Meligy, are you with us?
Yes, I hear you.
I'm sorry for keeping you, but we were taking
Al-Asr prayers. Not at all. May God accept all our prayers.
Right, thank you so much. It's a real pleasure to retrieve you back, and we were talking about the violations. In your own assessment, sir, as an international observer and an Egyptian expert, a political expert and diplomatic expert on those events for years, what could happen? What could unfold after all those violations? This time, the peace agreement was observed by other ends, and especially that this time Israel is being internationally excluded. Lots of countries have recognized Palestine as a state. The situation with Israel is not like before. So
of course
how do you expect events to unfold?
At the same time, the American support is still the same. maybe Mr. Trump, as President of the United States, is not totally satisfied with some Israeli policies, but his support for Israel is unwavering, and and we've seen that he can implement and can force Israel to accept some conditions when he insists on that. However, I'm not really optimistic with any real pressure from the United States on Israel. We've just heard and we've just seen that Mr. Trump has even sent an official American document to Israel asking to give a pardon to Mr. Netanyahu for all the corruption accusation that he's been accused of. And this does not show, honestly, that Mr. Trump is seeing any future for Israel, for at least on short term, without Prime Minister Netanyahu. And this is actually, Prime Minister Netanyahu is one of the major obstacles for peace in not just in Israel and Palestine, but all the region. I mean, look at what he is doing in Lebanon and in Syria, and in all other Arab countries, and the violation even to the peace treaty with Egypt. I mean, his presence on the border from the Palestinian side of Rafah and the Salahuddin access, the occupation of Salahuddin access by Israeli forces. All these are violations to the peace treaty with Egypt. And if Egypt did not have this restraining, self-restraining power, things could have deteriorated even between Egypt and Israel. But Egypt is always having the Palestinian cause right before its eyes, and we don't want to let these things affect our position and affect our determination to try to push Israel towards peace. But the situation is now that we are seeing President Trump and the American administration are trying to draft a new resolution by the Security Council. It has a lot of problems, and it has a lot of even objection from major players in the Security Council like Russia and China, who do not accept the marginalization of the Security Council, and that all the powers should be in the hands of this board of peace that is going to be presided by President Trump himself.
Yes, as stated by the summit, there was an agreement. But let me then ask you, resulting from all all that chaos that is taking place right now by the hands of the Israeli occupation with the support of the U.S., from your own point of view, you are pretty aware of the terms of the peace agreement and that peace council that was formed and agreed upon by all parts. Are there some, terms? Are there some ultimatums? Are there some precautions that could be taken? Some actions that could be taken later on if any violation is taken? I mean, talk to us about this. In that situation, what is going to happen with all the parts of that witnessed and signed the agreement?
I cannot speak about what could happen, but what I could speak about is what could be done. What could be done is that we have once again to talk to our American friends and explain to them that the idea of creation of this board of peace instead of a central and principal UN role, this is going to be weakening any force on the ground, because it's going to be just like any coalition that have been done and powered outside of the United Nations, like the coalition against Iraq and the coalition against Libya and so on. And these were doomed to lose their battle because it does not have the United Nations support and accordingly the rest of the world. This is for the American. We have to explain this to them, and I believe that our diplomacy is not failing to keep on doing this once after the other. The second thing is that we have to talk to our friends, the European, as well. The idea of recognizing the state of Palestine and not doing what is sufficient to implement this recognition of the state of Palestine and continuing business with Israel as usual without any real sanctions on Israel will just lead Israel to continue its aggression. And as we have seen since the signature of the agreement, that nobody wants to pronounce it dead until this moment for various reasons that we explained earlier. So the idea is that we have to multiply our diplomatic efforts in order to achieve things. There is one more important or very important issue,
yes,
which is the necessity of more humanitarian aid to enter the Gaza Strip and not to allow Israel to put the veto on what could be entered. We have a real problem with fuel, and fuel, for instance, is the main fuel actually for the medical services, for any other services like being able to for the bakeries to work and for all other services that the Palestinian need.
Deteriorating temperature.
Exactly. And let's not forget that the Palestinians are living in tents, and we are approaching winter, and the need to build better shelters until the reconstruction of Gaza, which is another issue, because actually no investor would want to invest there since you don't have a permanent ceasefire. Who would go and pour money in Gaza while Israel will destroy everything the following day?
No need for that. Yes, of course. Totally agree. Of course, thank you so much, Ambassador, Excellency Ambassador Medhat Meligy, former Assistant Foreign Minister. Would like to thank you, sir, talking to us on Arab Affairs, and you have a good evening. And by this, we come to the end of this edition of Arab Affairs. Many thanks to all of you, and please stay tuned for more coming up on Nile TV.